Hey, 27-7 team, welcome. Today is a special episode. The 5 most common mistakes that we make when we're trying to grow and build a business. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, Wade Hagler here with 2717. Welcome. We have a very special guest, Merritt. Good dear friend of mine, Scott Wozniak, CEO of Swaz Consulting. Scott, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Wade, always good hanging out with you. Merritt, you too. Man, looking forward to talking again.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great episode today. Last time Scott and I were together, he actually just reminded me of this pre-recording. I thought it was in Atlanta, but it wasn't. We were racing Baja buggies in the Cabo Desert and jet setting around, and it was just a blast. I think you flipped yours.
Yeah, I was not driving. I was riding when it got flipped. We took turns. We drive one way and the other way. Yeah. When I was driving, we only spun out. So
okay, all right.
So I got a question for both of you real quick, because I heard about this secondhand.
Yeah.
And I was told by other people that were on this trip that they were literally praying because they thought they could die any second. It was so dangerous. Is that true?
Well, I mean, listen, we were on legit dirt roads on a cliff. Like the edge of the road was just a drop off. I mean, so, but yet they were pro level dune buggies. So I mean, you could roll down that cliff and probably be okay.
I think
as long as a tree didn't come in the hole there.
Yeah. I mean, if you were driving, I promise you this: the passenger was white knuckling the entire time. I'll just say it that way.
It was good for my faith, man. It was good for my. It's one of those moments where you like check your heart. Like, am I good with God? Like, if it all ends here, you think about your life and legacy. Oh, it's great. It's a great experience.
Yeah.
I love it.
It was a lot of fun. Well, listen, today I know we're going to talk about business, and you might see something I have over here. It's a little company called Chick-fil-A. Had a little lunch there today. So Scott not only was an amazing actor when he was younger, superstar soccer player, but this man is a business building machine. And he consulted and was actually brought on to be the business consultant for Chick-fil-A. Scott, tell us kind of how that evolved. How'd you get there? I mean, Chick-fil-A is probably the most successful fast food company in the world, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So lead us on that.
Yeah. Well, okay. My first connection with Chick-fil-A was long before I started working with them. I actually went to high school with the family that owns Chick-fil-A. A guy named Andrew, Kathy, and I. We played 3 sports together and rode dirt bikes, and he's one of my buddies. But honestly, I wasn't taking it seriously back then. I left to go kind of have adventures and became a consultant. But at the time when we were finishing high school, I was like, hey, good luck with your little mall restaurant. Hope you make it. Yeah, they're gonna make it, I think.
Yeah.
So I went off, became a consultant, and I was back visiting Atlanta, where we're from, and all that, and hanging with my friends. And they're like, "Wait, what are you doing now? And maybe you should come do some of that strategy stuff for us." And so 5 months of interviews later, moved back to Atlanta, and I ended up with a really cool job. Which, man, talk about fun stuff. It's some of what we'll talk about today comes right out of this job.
Yeah.
Here's my job ended up being. 50% of the time, I was like, I'm not really a restaurant guy. Like, now I know a bunch, but at the time I was like, I don't know. What do you want? And they're like, no, we have those guys. Here's what we need. 50% of my time, I went and traveled the world, went inside other companies, and just learned how they operate.
Wow.
Roll up my sleeves, join their teams. Officially, I was paid by Chick-fil-A, but functionally, I just worked on a whole bunch of teams and saw how they worked. And then I'd go through certification programs and get specialty things. And then I'd come back the other 50% of my time and was like, okay, turn that into some sort of upgrade for us.
Wow.
So we'd pick focus area, and I'd go to 7 companies and 5 certifications. And a year later, I'd come back and be like, all right, here's how we need to do this. And so, man, I just got exposure, and not just restaurant companies, everybody, man, car manufacturers and legal firms and Hollywood screenwriter, Pixar and Disney World. And it was bananas.
You told me.
So we learned a ton.
You told me one of these team building things that they sent you on was a yacht or a racing yacht, or what was it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. So we went to the World Championship sailboat racing team,
Nice.
and I joined them for a weekend training. And of course, I was not in the boat when they raced.
Yeah.
I was on the follow boat for the actual race, but got to like see their systems and sit in their team meetings. And
Wow.
I mean, it was a sacrifice, Wade. And I just sucked it up. For this. So I was a part of a team, and I'd look at my teammates and I'd be like, I just want you to know someday your sacrifice is going to pay off, man. Like, you just keep going.
That's right. That's right. Well,
It was the best year.
Well, Scott, that's a great little intro just so our viewers can see what a powerhouse you are. But today we're going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes companies make whenever they're trying to grow. So let's jump into it.
Yeah,
Merritt, you want to lead us off?
Yeah,
Number
let's
one?
do it. So the first question we had, or really the topic, is trying to be all things to all people, instead of, I think in your words, as we kind of framed up some of these questions, more of a niche type concept. Can you help unpack that for us?
Yeah, let me preface all these things. I've pretty much messed up all of them. Like it's not like, oh, those morons who messed it up. Like,
Yeah.
Dude, I have done all these things. And so now I work with people and they're like, oh, I did it too, man. So yeah, the first one I think is probably the most common of all these 5 most common is, man, we're starting off, we're trying to grow our company. We think we need to grow our company by being more things, more variety, more options. And it's all things to all people. And we think, okay, if I have more products for more kinds of people, then, man, more people will sign up and this is going to be great. The problem is the more scattered you get, the harder it is for them to make sense of who you are. And the best metaphor I got from a mentor, this word picture, I love it. He says, listen, you've got to figure out how to get the world's attention first and foremost. Why should they care? Why should they notice? And now after, there's 2 strategies. First, get their attention and grow by getting more people to work with you. Then you can talk about how to upsell and grow your existing base. Yes, I'm all about both of those things. But man, the biggest mistake we make is usually on the first half of that deal. And he said, you need to think about yourself like an icebreaker ship. So in the far north and the far south of the planet, the waterways will freeze. And then you get this spring and it's like starting to open up again. And they send these brutal heavy ships with these narrow tipped points to go smash through the ice channels and open it up for the commercial liners to come through so that we can buy an extra month or so of shipping traffic on each end of the deal, right? Everybody loves this. So you got to think getting your business to grow is being an icebreaker ship. And the mistake we think, I remember somebody asked me to speak early on in my career. I was building my own firm. And I saved it for the humor value of this. A 3-page Word document, single spaced, with all the different topics and services I could offer. It was ridiculous, man. They were all over the map. So yeah, no. What do you know? They never got back to me. It's the weirdest thing. Dude, they don't know what to do. It's so that in the boat analogy, what I did is I tried to load everything I could do to the front of the boat. Like those were all legit things because of my unique role. Man, I got manufacturing and creative design, and we got leadership development and restaurant operations, technology. I've done all that. Great. So I list this whole list, and it's like a flat-fronted boat. And I'm trying to get everyone's attention, and they don't know what to do with you, man. You got to narrow it down to a single point.
Yeah.
The most critical, and then if they get a little further, right? It's kind of think about the point of the boat.
Yeah.
If they ask a little more, they get a little more and a little more. And then by the time you break through, this is the phrase that won this for me. You've got to break through the icy indifference of the world. And until you do that, it doesn't matter how many other things you can do for them.
Wow.
So you find the single most interesting point, break through, build a relationship, and then, man, the fact that you got 29 things in the back of your boat is going to make for a great relationship.
Wow.
But none of that matters if you don't narrow to a niche. The kind of meme phraseology here is riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
You could be, I'll pick a very generic thing, right? Like, hey, you help with leadership development for folks, right? Great. Leadership development for everybody. Well, maybe you can do everybody. Well, what if you say leadership development for small business? Okay. What if I'm leadership development for small retail shops? No, I'm leadership development for vintage clothing stores who are in downtowns. Now, listen, you're like, dude, that's limiting me like crazy. Well, there's 2 benefits to going super narrow like that. One, you could literally be the best in the world at that. Because all the big boys are so generic. They've got generic programs. You could have the only program in the world that vintage clothing shops in downtowns are like, dude, this program is made for me. The second is when you win your core, oh, well, it's not that hard to spill over and win the next door neighbor, right? The shop that's next door to them, that's not a vintage clothing shop, right? Well, they're like, dang, you did so good with them. And you're like, well, yeah, this works for you too. It's not as hard as you think to go adjacent.
Yeah.
But we're afraid. I was afraid to narrow down. And man, there's so much value in narrowing down. And I still fight this. I still have more ideas and I still want to be like, everybody can do. Man, the more narrow you get, the faster you're going to grow.
Wow. I love that.
And you know, Scott, 2717, when we started it, we intentionally started it to be our first pillar that we've founded everything on is our faith in Jesus, and his word guides everything we do. Now, that's niche, right? It's okay. We're going to lead with our faith, and you don't have to be a believer to listen, but we're going to be teaching from a Christian perspective. A lot of it's going to be scripture based, and we knew it was a niche, but this is what God called us to do, and it takes a little bit of faith to do that, because your inclination. And I love your teaching us that our inclination can sometimes steer us wrong. Your inclination is you want to be Walmart. You come in, it doesn't matter what you're looking for, we got it. Well, I think you're coaching us that is the 5 mistakes that people make when trying to build and grow a business. That's mistake number 1, and we all lean toward that. So thank you for teaching us. So
that's a great one, Scott. That's a great one. So number 2 that you have is work on the fancy stuff when you're still inconsistent on the fundamentals. Man, that's a good one. Let's unpack that, brother.
Come on. I'm wincing because I've done this one too, right? Like, oh, I got this cool new idea. And we're like, man, until you build trust, nothing else matters.
Wow.
It doesn't matter. You cannot, there's no amount of fancy, there's no amount of marketing, there's no amount of technology, there's no proprietary technique. I mean, the first question your customers are asking is, can I trust you?
That's right.
Okay, so warning, I'm going to pick on McDonald's for just a minute. For the record, I like McDonald's. It's a good business. They make money. They're good people that run it. I mean, I'm not anti-McDonald's, but dang it, their story is like an epic tragedy in the business world for this category, because they became the king of fast food in the world, not just the U.S., because they were famous for their consistency, right? You could just count their famous. And man, now listen, for those of you who are international, McDonald's Global, I get it. There's some international branches that are phenomenal. Sadly, back here in the home country, McDonald's is now infamous for how bad their excellence is. Like they've just got this terrible reputation. And here's the thing, like I've talked to them, I've done the analysis. When you look at their actual excellence measures and qualities, they end up between 85 to 90% consistently excellent.
Wow.
It's not that bad. Everyone's like, you guys are terrible. No, they're not. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
And here's the hard truth. That's not how trust works. We think like, oh, how fancy can it be? And most of the time we're fine. Listen, 85 to 90% excellent is enough to make you famously bad.
Wow.
I'll put it another way. Inconsistent excellence earns you the same trust as consistent failure.
Wow.
I think it's trust, right, guys?
Yeah. No, I understand, yeah.
Hey, he's a great guy. He's a great employee. He only steals from me once a year, but otherwise, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's an all or nothing thing when we're talking about trust.
Yeah.
Can I count on it? And if I can't, 1 out of 10 times is enough to say I can't trust these guys.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, the old saying of trust is lost in buckets and earned in drops.
That's right.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what you're saying, Scott. And
That's it.
It's so wild to say it that way, but it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true, right? Man, that's huge. Work on the fancy stuff.
The great brands never stop working on the fundamentals. Never.
Yeah.
They eventually add fancy stuff. But man, this is one of the things, we went in all these great companies and they geeked out on the dumbest, littlest things. The basic tacticals like, hey, can we shave another 3 seconds off of that interaction? And can we make this website like 1% more optimized? And I mean, like just the fundamentals, man.
Yeah.
What's our opening phrase when somebody walks into our retail location? Hey, let's fiddle with our phrases a little bit. Like people are like, you're fine. Let's move on. No. The great brands put a ton of time and effort. They never stop working on the fundamentals.
You know, and I experienced this, Scott. We doubled in size a couple of years ago, and our education got really diluted, and we had to regroup really fast, and we had to come up with a new plan and dive back into the fundamentals, which is what made us great, which was our basic core education. And then and we're there. We're still perfecting it, but that was a lesson that I had to learn, the hard way. So
same.
Yeah, just good stuff. Yeah, I could sit here. I'm thinking about Kobe Bryant and the famous workouts he would do 3 a.m. Guys would show up and want and like 2 hours in, and he's still working on foot drills and dribbling drills, and they're going, man, when are we going to start working out? He goes, dude, we are working out. This is what I work on for 3 hours every day. It's like going, my God, well, one of the greats of all time, right? So
you got it.
Oh, I got one more analogy, Scott. You're gonna like this one. It's like the guys that want to do kite surfing, but they don't want to go through the pain of learning. So we were in St. John, and these you can tell your experience with kite surfing real quick as an analogy.
Man. Well, dude, you can do some pretty epic stuff with kite surfing, but if you don't get the fundamentals right, you start moving, and the next thing you know, you are launched. We've got some great pictures of guys literally horizontal, 4 or 5 feet off the water, getting dragged by their kite,
blown out of their shoes.
Yeah, exactly. Because man, and the thing about kite surfing is that dudes like us, like we lift and we work out, and like we think we're gonna muscle our way up, and they're like, no, man, it's precision. If you do it right, it's a one-handed technique, and so that's it. If you yank on it, you'll suddenly be out of the water and going, and then you'll suddenly be back in the water, and it's like, no, man, if you don't get your entry-level technique, it'll wreck you. It will literally launch you.
The fundamentals.
That's it, man.
All right.
Okay. So number 3, again, these are the 3 most common mistakes when trying to grow and build a business. Hire for technical skills and ignore character. Man, I want to hear about this one. Let's talk.
Yeah, man. I'll just be real blunt.
Yeah.
The typical American hiring process is not working. Gallup did this massive study, thousands of companies at the end of last year, about 6 months from the recording of this podcast. And they found that 34% of American employees were engaged at their job. 1 out of 3 were actually like showing up, giving their best shot. 2 out of 3 were either not like kind of doing the bare minimum or actively disengaged, trying to figure out how to mess the company up or do a bad job. Like, it's not working. And that's because most people just have a job interview process that says, show me your resume and can you do the skills and who else have you done? And listen, that's not bad. We need that. You should probably check that, right?
Yeah.
But we think you should hire for 3 things: character, chemistry, and competence.
I agree.
Yeah.
Character, chemistry, and competence. Competence is one of the 3, sure. But gosh, usually wrecks us is the other 2, right? If you think about the last times you've had trouble with employees, challenge works, I bet you 80% of the time, it was not that they couldn't do the job. They weren't capable. It's that they had character or chemistry problems.
Yeah.
It was their attitude, their people skills, their value set. This stuff is critical, and most people don't even test for it in their hiring process. They're like, Wade's really smart. I mean, Wade's done this at 3 other companies. We should bring him in. And he might be, but man, Wade might not be the right fit for your company or your process, even if he's a great guy. Quick example, like this isn't just mean bad character. Well, sure, don't hire cheats, right? Got it. I mean things like let's say that you need really high precision, and what you really need is someone who is careful and cautious and precise and methodical. And what you end up getting is a guy who's maybe a little more like Wade and I, that's like creative and risk oriented, and like we'll jump off the cliff and figure out how we're going to land on the way down.
Yeah.
Listen, both of those are wonderful human beings, right? Some of my best friends are that way. Either way. And man, one of those guys is going to thrive with you, and one of them is going to struggle with you.
Yeah.
And they're both nice guys, and they both have worked at great companies.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're looking for, and do you have a way to test for it, or do you just cross your finger and go with your gut?
Yeah.
And if you go with your gut, even the best managers end up 50-50. And I mean, American average is 34% of them are going to be great employees, and the other 2/3 are going to wash out or just kind of barely keep up. If you want great people, if you want a great company, you have to have great people.
Yeah.
It is not an option. It's not a bonus. Everything else assumes you have the right people.
Yeah.
And
Can I ask you
so,
Can I ask a follow-up question? So I was listening. I was in Cool Trip this last weekend. I don't know if you know who Ed Milet is. Anyway, I was with Ed, a small group of guys.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about this very thing, and he asked a question. He said, think about your very best employee, the best one, the number one person on your team. And he said, would you rather have, and he said, now think about like the one that you're going, they probably don't need to stay, right? They're just, right, they probably need to exit the team. They're not doing well. Would you rather have 5 more of those that are teetering on you probably need to get rid of them, or would you rather have 1 more stud? And he said what happens is we tend to hire because we go, man, I can't, yeah, but I'm paying this, and I'll make up a number. I'm paying this stud $250,000 a year, and I'm able to pay this entry-level guy, $40K a year. And so, man, I can't afford another $250,000. And he said, if I ask most of y'all, the stud is doing 20 times more than that entry. So he said, do the math on it. You're paying $40K for somebody doing little or nothing, $250K. He said, I'm telling you right now, go look for the $250K people, pay them, and stack your business up with them. Again, character and all that, but and I think it goes to more, right? But do you agree with that, Scott?
100%. Now, different industries have different ratios, right? If you get into like software coding, the difference between the top coders and just even one level down is 300x. They've measured this, right? But there are some industries. I mean, if you're a ditch digger, right? The difference between the world's best ditch digger and the second best ditch digger is still 20%, right? Yeah. So you need to know your range. You're probably somewhere between software and ditch digging,
right?
But you can literally do the math on this and make an informed business decision and be like, Wade costs me 40% extra, but he's 100% more valuable.
That's right.
Dude, you should do that every day of the week. Yeah. That's a good business decision.
Yeah.
Yes. Character is this catch-all term for me for their talent, their wiring, their passion, their dreams, all that, the non-tangible stuff. That's far more valuable.
Can I want to propose a question to all of us here.
Yep.
Over the past, I'd say 7 to 10 years, the gene pool has become dry. It is so hard to find just average workers, much less amazing. And I think we've all been forced to compromise our morals when it comes to hiring to a certain extent. And
I totally agree.
Okay.
And I would say 5 years ago I said it was hard. Now those are the good old days, right?
Yeah. Well, 100%. I was talking to a builder today. We just are finishing up our home, and one of these builders has been in the industry for 50 years. And he said, used to you'd hire 10 subs, and one of them was a drunk or addicted to stuff. He said now it's maybe 7 of them are out of the 10. And it's just a crazy epidemic that's happening where people either have mental issues or addictions or insecurity, and they'll show up one day and not the next. And it's in my industry, it's in every industry out there. And I don't know. I think what you're saying though is it's more important today to use these tools to narrow down who you need than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, exactly. That's an excuse sometimes to say, you just can't. Here's what I would say. That means you got to work even harder.
Yeah.
And just because not every company's going to get great. There's still good employees. There's 3 out of 10 left, right? To use your analogy.
Yeah.
So the company that finds those 3 wins.
That's right.
That's right.
If you just cross your fingers and hope you're going to get them, you're going to be the guy who ends up with the 7 out of 10 strugglers.
Yeah.
This is the game. You're going to, everything else, all the other strategy we're talking about assumes you have the right people. And the harder it is, the harder you should work at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. All right. Let's we on number 4?
Yes, sir.
All right. We're on number 4 here. These are the top 5 things that you want to avoid when trying to grow your business. Number 4 is wait too long to launch.
Yep.
Failure to launch. There's a movie about this, isn't there?
Yes. There's the whole generation about this, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, so this is the temptation. You're putting yourself out there. You're growing your business. You got your new thing. It's your baby, right?
Yeah.
And you want it to be awesome. And you have ideas and all these. And you've been looking at how the other people do it. And you're building and you're building. And the mistake is you stay in your garage. And this is even the myth about entrepreneurship, right? Like, dude, me and Merritt are going to get in our garage, and like, I know I'm the sales guy and he's this smart genius, and we're going to put something together. And then like a year later, we're going to come out and launch our product to the world, and everyone's going to be like, oh, that's the greatest new thing. And then you grow to $1 billion, right? That's not how it works, man. Because here's what happens most of the time. 99.999% of the time. We put all this time, we show up in the garage, and the world's like, oh yeah, we don't actually even want that. And you're like, but that's my baby. The most valuable way to build a great product is to get a minimum viable product out in the market and start getting real customer feedback. Now, minimum viable is the key. There's a tension here. It's got to be viable. You can't put crap in the market and be like, yeah, like tell me what you think. They'll tell you it's crap, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to get good enough that it actually does something valuable.
Yeah.
But the minimum level, as soon as you can get it out, that's still viable. Then you start getting real-time feedback and process. I'm literally doing this now, and I didn't used to. I used to like polish. It took me 10 years to write my first book because I kept polishing and polishing and polishing. And at some point, it's like, dude, you just got to put something out, man. I didn't want to let anyone else read it because I knew I had better ideas. Like, come on, just start getting people involved, put it out. So I'm getting better at this. We just launched a month ago our first ever online program. I've spent 20 some years inside companies doing this high-end consulting for them, all in person. And we finally turned all that into a digital system. And I've been thinking about this for probably 7-8 years. Yeah. And I told my team, I just gave them a deadline. In fact, what I did, I have to force myself. I'm not good at any of these, right? These are all my mistakes. So here's what I did. I actually went to a group of people at the beginning of this year, and I told them all about the program, and I sold it to them and told them it's launching in May. It was going to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
Dude, we hadn't finished building it. We're still in the middle of building it. It's like, it'll be ready in May. And I go back to my team, and I was like, guess what? Come May, some people are logging into this thing. We're collecting money. It's happening. And so when May came, guess what? I had already a page of ideas of things I wanted to add to improve the program and make it better. Like, we weren't done. Now, what was in the program, I'd already worked on for 1.5 years. I did the videos, redid half the videos because they weren't good enough. Like, when we finally got to May, I was like, this part of the program is awesome. Yeah. This whole other part of the program isn't going to have to open up later this summer because we have to launch. Now, I did it to myself because, if I didn't do that, I would still be fiddling with that and fiddling with that. Yeah. And probably 3 years from now, I'm ready. Do you know what I already found in the first month of launching this thing? They love one part of it. I knew that. There's another part. They asked for a little new program. My last call right before this was with my team. Yeah. Hey, they want this extra thing. I had no idea. They're like, we'd pay $250 a person for that extra thing. And I was like, well, dang, we should load that into the program.
Yeah.
Like, change their plan. You're going to learn from putting something out in the market.
Yeah.
So much more than you will by hiding in your garage and trying to build the perfect thing that's someday going to be awesome. Yeah. It's scary, it's risky, but and listen, it's honest feedback because everybody will tell you because they're nice. Oh yeah, no, I'll buy that when you launch it. Mm-hmm. Can I just tell you, I've done this a lot now. When it's time to okay, let me see your actual money. Some of them will, and I wish this wasn't true. A lot of them will not. Right. They'll be like, oh, well, maybe next time, and things have changed. And yeah. You want real feedback?
Yeah.
Ask somebody to buy something.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. I love it.
Well, and it makes me think about even what we did here. I mean, I kind of go back to 2017. Yeah. We really didn't know what we were doing. I mean, Talon, who's behind the scenes over there, that's really running the show, had a little bit of experience in this, and we all went to church together. And so over a cup of coffee, we, Wade and I kind of shared our idea the Lord put on our heart, and then we just dove in. Yeah. And we still don't know what we're doing. Yeah. We're thankful for the 12,000 plus people that have subscribed to this channel, and in 14 months but we're still trying to figure it out. So thanks for all your grace and mercy. But we really do have a desire to help people and to through our own testimony, through God's truth, to help people. And I think sometimes He works through. Right, He doesn't call the equipped, right? He equips the called, right? I mean, it's that thing of, but we have to, faith without works is dead. It's that idea of moving, hey, I don't know enough. I don't know. Well, we never do, but move forward. And then, Scott, I got one. I'm going to flip the script on you because I want you a little wisdom on this just real quick. The other aspect that Wade and I deal with, because we do a fair amount of mentoring, is and I'm not going to pick on an age group. I'll just make up a scenario. A 21-year-old, fired up, male or female, that feels like they're ready to tackle the world, take it on. They've got everything it takes, and they want to go. They want to run the show at 21 with very limited, right? So there's the other side of the coin, and I love these people because they've got that look in their eye that I had of, I want to take over the world, but yet they're not equipped yet to do it. So there's somewhat of a little bit of a balance in there. Is that true?
Yeah, very much. This is the tension, the minimum viable, right? Like viable means it's good enough, functional, you have the skills, you can do it. And then minimum, you could think about this for a product. You could zoom out like you're doing Merit and think about this for your life and your career, right? You don't wait to start doing things like till I'm 75 and think I got it all. Like
right.
Ministry, you want to talk about mentoring, right? And ministry, man.
Yeah.
I think you grow tremendously by stepping into ministry and starting to serve people.
Amen.
More than you do by sitting and listening.
I
right?
agree.
On the other hand, there's a minimum level of like,
Yeah.
like listen, maybe you shouldn't be actively like getting high while you're in the middle of ministering to people
Right.
about their recovery, right? Like, at least 30 days sober, right? Like, let's start something.
Yeah.
And so there's a tension there of like, okay, I got dreams, get started, but get the minimum, and so. Either side of that, you fall off the ditch, right? Well, you wait too long or you don't, it's junk. You actually haven't got some fundamentals figured out. But in this case, I'm leaning aside like, okay.
I'm with you.
Don't stay in the garage forever and ever thinking someday I'll polish this. Like once you've maybe got a few validated folks to say, this is real, I think there's something here, start trying it in real time with real people.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so your last point, and then we'll see what we do after that, but is, you care too much about the wrong things. And man, have I made this mistake. Teach me, Scott. Talk to us.
Okay, so what's really going on, or what has gone on for me in this category?
Yeah.
Is at this point, like I'm launching something, I'm trying to grow something, and what has happened is normal and natural, but not good. I've tangled my identity and self-worth in this presentation and how things are going. And so every detail has to be perfect because if somebody criticizes that thing, I'm criticized.
That's right.
If it doesn't go right, I'm a failure, right? And so you're growing, and it turns out if you are holding so tightly on all the details being exactly the way you would want to do them, you are the lid of your company.
So
it
good.
could be that what's holding you back is yourself.
Wow.
And you're not willing to let go of some of the details. Now, there are some few fundamentals. We talked about this, right? Like you got to get the fundamentals right.
Yeah.
You always keep an eyeball on the fundamentals. But that requires a certain level of maturity and insight that you say, okay, this one and these three things, they're critical, and I'm just never going to stop watching them like a hawk. But you know what? That also frees you up. Anything that's not those three things, man, listen, that's Scott Wozniak. He's a little crazy, but he's getting the fundamentals right, and the other way, he's not doing it all the way I would do it. Let's see what he can do. Let's try it. You have got to release and empower your people to get creative, to not do it your way, as long as it's not the fundamentals. And so I see this all the time. It's like, dude, the product's there. You got a great team. They're ready to roll. You've picked a good niche. Like it's all set, and you just are the bottleneck for the company because you have to approve every single thing, and you care too much because you can't tell the difference between the critical details and the non-critical details.
That's so good.
Man, that is good advice. That is really good advice.
Well, and one thing, I'm watching Wade, and 6 months ago or so, he brought in a professional consultant for the first time. And to your credit, you said it's been a game changer.
Yeah.
But I think that's maybe kind of what you're talking about is, okay, what am I missing? Well, sometimes, and Wade and I are both we're founders. We not only, is it a business we have, but we started it from scratch. And It's our baby, and it's your identity. In fact, it's got his name on the building, right? I mean, and so to bring somebody else in, you're kind of like going, well, I don't know if I want anybody else's opinion. This is kind of my thing. But at times, right, I don't see what I don't see, right? I mean, I don't know what I don't know.
Well, and I think in my case, my COO she had like 24 direct reports, which is just suicide. And I was trying to mentor her on how to let go of that. But I had got to a point where I didn't know how to get there. And so I had to. So we brought in somebody that has been phenomenal at the strategic planning and has completely changed the game for us. And but I had to get vulnerable and say, hey, I got the white flag up. I need help, right? And we and especially men, we can get really prideful, and we don't want anybody to know that we're not able to solve that problem. But man, I think if you want to avoid some huge mistakes in growing your business, then drop the pride and realize where you're weak at and get somebody to help you.
Yep.
So, Hey, can I do a bonus round through this? I want to go back, talk through the biblical principles of each of these, because I work with lots of different businesses, right? But man, to get to hang with brothers in Christ, it's like, hey, these aren't just randomly cool ideas. What do you know? So
let's do it.
Okay, Merritt, I interrupted you. You okay if we do this for a minute?
I'm 100% for it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing, right? You try to be all things to all people. And there is a verse where Paul says, hey, I'll be all things. But really what you get down to is the specific calling. Now, Paul's talking about how you communicate the gospel, like it's for everybody. But if you actually look at Jesus and how he did stuff, dude, Jesus was not generically pleasant to all people.
No.
Yeah.
He said things to his disciples, like someone like, hey, what do I need to do to follow you? And he'd say, hey, go sell everything you have and let's talk about this. Or like, hey, don't forget about your family. And if you don't abandon this, like he was like, I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, listen, we think of Jesus as Mr. Rogers, like the world's nicest guy. Like he's Mr. Rogers with a beard, right? Like, dude, you don't put the world's nicest guy to death. He was polarizing and challenging, and he clearly said, I'm for this. He went and picked a fight with the Pharisees. He did not try to be all things to all people and be polite to everybody. Now, I'm not saying go be a jerk in your marketing. What I am saying is, like, there's one really controversial moment where someone came to him who's outside of Israel and said, hey, will you come to our Gentile town and help? And he said, I am called to the people of God, to Israel. We'll get to you later. Now, then on when he's leaving, the last thing he said is go to all the nations, right?
Yeah.
He tells his,
Yeah.
That was always the plan, but he knew for this season, I'm called to these people.
Yeah.
One little bitty corner of the world.
Yeah.
What's your calling? This is maybe the most powerful, freeing thing I got in ministry from a mentor of mine back in the early days. He said, need does not equal call.
That's right.
Need does not equal call. Because I would feel this pressure, like that's a legitimate need. I should go help those people. I should help. I should serve. I should give. I should mentor. And he's like, no. Need does not equal. That's a legitimate need. That doesn't mean you are the one called to that need.
That's right.
That's
the question is not, is it a real need? The question is, what is your calling?
Yeah.
Scott, one of the things, I've got a good friend of mine that's over our benevolence at our church, and the people come in with these, they want to church to sow into all these different things, and they sound like this one guy is real passionate on some obscure, real small ministry thing, but he was real passionate and wanted the church to sow a pretty large amount of money into it, and he counseled the guy and said, look, God's put that on your heart. I mean, that's obviously that's God's put that on your heart, so you go figure out how to sow into that. God hasn't put that on our heart. That's not one of our primary ministries that we're focused on at our church. But God bless you, and you go about and go do what God's called you to do. Right? It's that. Yeah. So I love what you're saying there.
It's awesome.
100%. Okay, so work on the fundamentals, not the fancy stuff. Right? You skip that. I'll just do it really quickly on this. Truett Cathy was the founder of Chick-fil-A. Great brand, right? Learned a ton from this guy. Really interesting thing. When Truett was 8 years old, he went to school, and boy, talk about how times have changed. In school, their assignment was to pick a Bible verse and memorize a Bible verse. So we'll skip the part where we talk about, boy, how American school systems have changed. But public school, right? Yeah. He was a Depression era kid. He didn't have any money. His dad actually had kind of left their family hanging high and dry, and they were dirt poor in the Depression. And the verse he picked was Proverbs 22 that says it's better to have a good name than to have great riches.
Silver, gold, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, exactly. I think I slightly misquoted that.
No, you're fine.
But that's been his life verse. Now, here's what happens. If you build trust and reputation on I deliver on all the promises and the fundamentals I say, one of the byproducts of that is great riches. Again and again and again, from the Old Testament, New Testament, there's a, can I trust you? Do you do what you say you do? A righteous man of God, a woman of God follows through. And that follow through is really, it's more valuable than any quick hit of the cat, better than winning the lottery, right? If we do the modern Scott Wozniak version of that old timey verse, it's like better to have a good reputation for trust in the fundamentals than to win the lottery.
Yeah, I agree.
This is just a fundamental of business and biblical principles, right?
100% agree.
Well, and if you think about just in the business world, people are going to, your name precedes you a lot of times. And whenever they hear, there's certain people that you'll hear their name, you're like, oh man, stay away from that one, And then there's other people that you hear their name and you're like, oh, amazing guy, amazing family, amazing woman. And there's immediate trust built, right?
Yeah.
In my world, I'll say it like this. If you're looking to get a hairstyle and you're in a new place and you don't know where to go, you find somebody that has really good hair and you ask them where they went, right? They immediately trust that person. They've never met them, never laid eyes on them, but they see the work they did. So again, a great name precedes you, goes before you, and will open the ways for you. And that's
100%.
biblical. It's biblical. And our names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life, right? So, I mean, we've got some pretty special stuff on us as Christians.
Heck yeah. All right, so talk about ignoring the character side. One of my favorite biblical stories of this is King David. So he's a little boy, and Samuel, the great mighty man of God, the judge, shows, and God says, one of these, he goes to Jesse, he says, one of his sons is going to be the next king of Israel. And he says, bring me your sons. And it says, these boys were big and beautiful and strong and like, check these studs out. And God's like, nope, nope, nope. And then he's like, what? They're like, well, there's the little runt out in the field, but like, you can't mean him. And he's like, bring him. And the Bible says very clearly that God said, like, God does not see as man sees. He looks at the heart, not on the outside.
That's right.
Yeah.
And man, Samuel was looking, the king before David, dude, he had resume to boot, man. He was head and shoulders taller than everyone else. He was a great warrior. He was charming and beautiful and all this cool stuff. And he turned out to be horrible. And little runt David now grows into kind of this dashing young fella. But at the time, it's like, hey, you could pick the prime specimen, the resume winner. And he turns out to be sour. His heart was not for God.
Yeah.
David was a man after God's own heart, and he created the greatest dynasty in Israel's history. On and on and on, but that verse specifically says God sees not as man sees. He looks not at the outward appearance, but at the heart.
Yeah.
And when you get a glimpse of that, we make better choices.
I love it.
100% agree.
Yeah, love it.
All right,
Awesome.
let me wrap the last two up here.
Okay.
Waiting too long to launch and caring too much about the wrong details. I'll just put one example that I think references both of those. Jesus and his disciples. Okay, so in my world, whether you're Christian or not, here's my worldview. Jesus was like the ultimate people developer, leader, you don't have to believe his message, but here's what's an irrefutable fact. In 3 generations, the known world had been transformed, had churches everywhere. The culture had totally changed. I mean, it was bananas. The success, and his organization is still the largest organization on the planet.
Yeah.
2 billion Christians right now. It's crazy, right? Okay, so he gets his disciples. He hands select these guys. And there's this crazy moment where in the middle of his ministry, where he's walking around, he hasn't done the crucifixion or left or any of that stuff, right? He sends them out 2 by 2 and says, go do the stuff you're saying. Like, we know from the rest of the story, they're still morons, right? They're still going to do a lot of dumb things.
Yeah.
He's going to rebuke them. There's lots of stuff where like, you idiot. When he crucified, 11 of them are going to run and hide.
Yep.
2 of them are going to betray him. One's going to kill himself rather than apologize. Like, these guys are still morons, but halfway through the process, he's like, the best way to grow you and to grow this thing is to get you paired 2 by 2, launch you into the surrounding villages and try out the stuff we've been doing. Do the things you see me do. You try figuring it out. Yeah. And he was willing to let them mess up as long as they didn't screw up the core gospel, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't wait for them all to be perfect before he launched. He got to a certain stage. Okay, you're ready enough. He didn't do it on day one, and he didn't wait till they were all perfectly godly great men in their 80s. He said, "We're going to give this a shot." And he, the perfect leader, said, "All right, I'll let you go do some sloppy stuff because it's going to grow you and grow this message faster than if I try to make it all perfect the way only I would do it."
I love that.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
love that analogy, man.
Yeah.
Scott, this has been amazing, brother. I hope we get to do another amazing trip soon. We've done some cool stuff together. I love all the success. Hey, where can people find you?
Yes.
Yeah, you can probably see most of my stuff and all things I'm doing at my website, and then it links to everything else.
Okay.
ScottWozniak.com. That's
Okay.
ScottWozniak.com. And then you can get, I've got a newsletter you can sign up for and online programs, and you can check out my company, and all that stuff links out of ScottWozniak.
Right on. And you have a book. What's the name? Do you have 2 books?
Yes, I have 4 books.
Oh, wow. Come on.
Yeah. But the latest one is Make Your Brand Legendary.
Yes.
It's the lessons learned on how to build these raving fan companies and
Awesome.
kind of what it like inside all this stuff. It's kind of the culmination of 20 years of stuff. It's
Yeah.
we hit #1 on Amazon in our category. It's been super successful.
Way to go, brother.
So
I love it.
yeah.
Well,
you want to go, you can get links to that on my website, or you can just go search Scott Wozniak on Amazon and you'll see all my stuff.
Okay.
So.
Well, you're not only an amazing business coach, you're an amazing husband and a father and a friend. And, man, thank you so much. I got nothing but love and respect for you, Scott. And I hope to see you soon, brother. Thank you so much for coming on 2717. Hey, guys,
Thanks,
if you like this episode, please subscribe, share it. Merritt Vaughn, do you have anything to say?
No, Scott, thank you. Anything we can ever do for you, brother, we're here for you. We love you. Thanks for all you're doing.
Awesome.
Thanks, Merritt.
All right. Peace out, guys.
See you next time.